Oh,
great.
Lance Stroll.
So
Please.
that caused what they call an aborted start. And there was some confusion on the track because as the drivers came back to their grid places, their grid boxes before the start of the race, as one does before the start of every race, they didn't understand there was an aborted start. They didn't know why. Then as they find out, some drivers go out for another formation lap, which breaks the rules. Who was among those drivers, Sean?
Lando.
Who didn't leave?
Max.
Speaking of getting the party started.
For the victory lap, though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I stress overcome, what for? Train in the trees, please walk my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands, and stormy shore seasons in the year. Switch gears, with keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat, and tears, and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. It's a J, we break through. 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 It's a J, we break through.
What's up, everybody? It is time for everybody's favorite weekly podcast, delving into our two loves exclusively, that being Formula One and football. It's the podcast that's equal parts grid and equal parts iron. It's the Gridiron Podcast. As always, I'm Sean Barie, and if you're watching us on Twitch or YouTube, right next to me, holding down the fort in the land, the bald behemoth himself, Nick Shook.
Sean, I hate to tell you this, but I think your computer's got the wrong mic set up again.
Oh, man.
So I can vamp for the next 30 seconds while you go through the settings and try to adjust it. There is a settings button down there that maybe you can find your microphone. We will survive without your contributions for a moment here as we try to go from you sounding like you're in a fish tank to you sounding proper, which is getting that beautiful baritone voice.
How about now?
Go for it again.
How about now?
There it is. Now he's back. So he sounded like he was at the bottom of a vat of beer. And
should I restart the whole open?
Nah, screw it. We're going to roll with
All
it.
right,
That's how we do it at the Gridiron Podcast. We keep it authentic. It is episode 54. It's just me and Sean tonight. Katie,
Yes.
She got COVID during her gallivanting trip across the US.
Yeah. How irresponsible. She's missing her second straight podcast. Last week, she was gallivanting all across the southeastern United States. Now she, has COVID.
Probation.
How dare she?
She's on probation. It's as simple as that.
No.
We're just kidding. We're just
Double
kidding.
secret probation, Katie. Double secret probation.
We have
got a lot to get
talk
to
about
tonight in the podcast. We're going to rewind and talk about week 9 in the NFL now that it's officially in the books. We're recording on Wednesday, so getting this out a little bit late, but it's neither here nor there. And then we've also got a race to talk about. One of the most exciting, unpredictable, and just all around crazy and chaotic races that I can remember as a Formula One fan, that being in Brazil. So let's start off with the NFL. Week 9. We're officially halfway through the season, Nick. As our NFL talent writer, what did you see?
Well, first I saw Coley get in the chat and say, get your mic game together, Sean.
Damn it, Austin. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Austin, for watching and listening. As always, we love you. What did I see in week 9? Well, we saw, there's not that much separation necessarily to go around between these teams, but the Chiefs remain undefeated. They have their own brand of football in which they will squeeze you to death like a boa constrictor. The Vikings shut down Joe Flacco and the Colts. The insertion of Joe Flacco into the starting lineup did not go as anticipated for Indianapolis in their first week trying that out. The Bears are on a bit of a slide, lost 29-9 and weren't really competitive in a loss to the Cardinals. The Eagles are on fire. The Browns stink again. The Steelers were on bye, and the Bills still own the Miami Dolphins. That's essentially what I saw there. Oh, and by the way, the Lions, they still own the Packers, and the Ravens are still a machine.
Yes. Question for you. Bucs lose Monday Night Football to the Chiefs. Should Todd Bowles have gone for 2?
Yes, absolutely. You play against the Chiefs. It is not a coin flip when you go to overtime, even if this offense isn't as explosive as it was in years prior. And you have all the momentum going in your favor. It's a rainy night. You're on the goal line. You just scored. Go for the win. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? You lose the coin flip and lose in overtime like they did. You knew that your defense wasn't going to get a stop. They couldn't get a stop the whole second half. That's why you lose.
My whole take on it is if you go to overtime, you have a 50-50 chance. That's too much of a probability for Patrick Mahomes. You need to make sure that he has like a 1% chance. 50-50 chance for Patrick Mahomes is insane. And I get it. You're trying to go for 2 without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin. Like, you've got Kate Otten and you've got Sterling Shepard and Ryan Miller out there. But I mean, it worked on that last minute, touchdown drive. So you're away in the rain at Arrowhead. Yeah, I would have absolutely gone for 2. And Todd Bowles is getting cooked down here in Tampa Bay for it, getting questioned a lot. I also noticed that wasn't the only team to make that decision, because the Bucs tied the game up late, down a touchdown, decided to go for 1. They lost. Well, so did the Seahawks. So did the Dolphins.
So did the Patriots.
And so did the Patriots. 4 teams, all scoring game-tying touchdowns, or at least down a touchdown, score a late touchdown, and all decide to go for 1 instead of 2, all end up losing. Now,
Yeah, Dolphins is a little bit different because there was still some time on the clock, but yeah.
I know the 2-point conversions are going off at about like a 31% clip this year, but at the same time, come on, coaches, let's have some fun here.
Yeah, speaking of fun, Coley's not having very much fun with the Bears. He says,
No.
Fire Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus. Should have done that last year, my friend.
What wasn't a player this week asked, like, he was asked who was it? Asked something about Eberflus, and he was like, I want to say yes. It's like, how could you not just say yes? He's like, I want to say yes.
I have a feeling people are going to look back at the end of the year and see that Tyreek Stevenson play or lack of participation for the start of the final play, which is a Hail Mary in Washington, and say, there's where it all started to fall apart for the Bears.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, if you could put your finger on something at a point in time and go, yep, it was right there. It was right there. You said it, Browns back to sucking. This is what the Jameis Winston experience is going to be, unfortunately. I think. I mean, some weeks you're going to be up, some weeks you're going to be down. This is what Jameis Winston is. Will you probably win more games than you would have with Deshaun Watson? Yeah, probably. But I mean, this is what the experience is going to be like.
Yeah, and that's essentially all you have left to sign up for, because it's either that or DTR. So the Browns are a bad team. Andrew Berry spoke today about, well, it was the post-trade deadline press conference, but it was all about Deshaun Watson, and predictably he didn't say much of anything. And I still believe that Deshaun Watson has played his last game in a Browns uniform, and they're going to find a way out of it in the offseason. It's going to cost them some money, probably not as much as people think. Maybe cost them some assets as well. But for the time being, it is Jameis Winston's team, and they're a 4-win team to me. I think they're going to be picking in the top 5 in the draft in April.
Back where the Browns have been for so long, but
the draft matters in Cleveland again.
The draft matters in Cleveland. I mean, you've had recent draft success, so there's something to look forward to. I say you as a lapsed Browns fan, but you know what I mean. Other trades, Nick. We did have some trades, right?
Yeah, Zadarius Smith gets traded from the Browns to the Lions. Khalil Herbert gets traded from the Bears to the Bengals. Mike Williams going to Pittsburgh. Steelers finally get a receiver. Not nearly at the same caliber of the one they wanted.
I texted you and Katie when it went down, and I was like, welcome to Pittsburgh, Brandon Cooper, Devontae, Mike Williams, sure, come on down. I guess. Like, this is he's not the receiver we asked for, but he's the receiver that we need right now. I don't know about all that. Sure. Like, can he do better in Pittsburgh than he did in New York? Yeah, probably. I think that was just a bad fit, but at the same time, like, is he that much of an upgrade from like Van Jefferson at the moment? Maybe.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Like, Van Jefferson's
he's
been
on
having
the same page as his quarterback.
Yeah, he's having a pretty good connection.
It's another guy with experience. That's all it is.
Right.
It's another guy with experience that can develop a rapport with a veteran quarterback, and it's better than nothing. And they didn't give up much for it. A number of other trades that happened, they were all low level stuff. Stuff that Preston Smith got traded from the Packers. That was kind of interesting, but no blockbuster trades at the deadline. Nothing massive. The Browns didn't trade Myles Garrett, for example. So Browns fans who think that they should trade him, you're gonna have to wait for the offseason. Newsflash, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
Not going to happen.
All right. Trade deadline come and gone. So has the halfway point of the season. 9 weeks in the book, 9 to go. So I thought, let's do a little, mid-season superlatives, a la your high school yearbook style. And we're going to get wild with this one, Nick. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah. I actually pulled a couple of SpongeBob references here. So we're going to start here with...
Why SpongeBob?
I don't know. It just there was that episode where they used a superlative to describe Squidward when he was talking with Squilliam, his nemesis. He said, "At least I wasn't the one who was most likely to be, or voted most likely to suck eggs, and most likely to suck eggs for the Gridiron podcast, Deshaun Watson, because you sucked, and I don't know if you're ever going to play again. Simple as that."
As they say in Cleveland, pound salt, Deshaun Watson. Isn't that what they say?
Is that a Cleveland thing? I grew up with my dad saying that.
Yeah,
I told him to pound salt.
It wasn't in Pittsburgh. We always just called people Jags.
Yeah, Jags.
Jag off.
Yeah.
All right, I've got most likely to join the gymnastics team, Saquon Barkley.
Yes, because
hurdling is an art form that many running backs can do. Reverse hurdling someone, that takes talent. So maybe, I don't know, Steven Nederazic from the U.S. men's gymnastics team might have some competition in L.A. in 4 years.
Yeah, and Nike seized upon the opportunity and noticed that Saquon did so wearing a pair of LeBron 4 cleats, which I guess have been taking off in the NFL in the last year. Just noticed them for the first time on Sunday. He did it wearing those, so they did a witness advertisement, but they put witness backward, mirrored.
I saw that. That was clever. That was clever.
Yeah.
I'll go again. Let's just do this snake draft style. I'm going to see if you can guess who I'm talking about, Nick.
Okay.
This person voted most likely to swag, but forget to surf.
Kirk Cousins.
Most likely to swag, but just forget to surf. Falcons are having a great year. They're starting to get some traction. I believe they're now 6-3. And they basically have a 2-game lead over the Bucs, who are now 4-5. As well as the tiebreaker. So things looking good in A-Town.
Yeah, Kirk's thrown for 2,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 picks, completion percentage near 70. He can't move in the pocket much, but he's definitely still got a live arm, and he is using it to the full extent of his capabilities to move that offense down the field.
And like 750 of those passing yards are against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they got the season sweep already in the bag.
Yep.
Darnell Mooney having a career year with him, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Big time for him, although they're going to need him more with Drake London out. Most deserving of the idiot box. Similar to the penalty box, but a reference to a SpongeBob episode. Tyreek Stevenson for what we already discussed on this podcast. Taunting fans and sideline before the Hail Mary and during the start of the Hail Mary play that Jaden Daniels pulled off. He was the last guy over the area. He's the one who perfectly deflected the ball into the hands of Noah Brown for a touchdown. Then got disciplined for it this week, put his coach in a bad situation. You are deserving of 5 minutes or maybe 5 weeks in the idiot box.
I too gave a superlative to Tyreek Stevenson.
Okay.
I called it the J.R. Smith Award.
Oh, no.
Because he forgot what the score and how much time was left on the clock.
I don't think he forgot. I just think he counted his score before the ball was in the hole.
The J.R. Smith Memorial T-shirt Award.
J.R. Smith, by the way, cameo video with the Cavs and that golf apparel company Malbin, which is a great idea because there's a little ball in the Cavs logo and they turn it into a golf ball. But because he was golfing at NCAA, he's the perfect guy for it. So that was a cool little thing. Most likely to pull a Vontae Davis. Thrice benched quarterback Gardner Minshew of the Las Vegas Raiders. If you're not familiar with what pulling a Vontae Davis is, it's retiring at halftime of a game. I don't think Gardner Minshew is going to retire because I think the competitor in him will keep him playing.
Yeah.
But if there was ever a season and ever a set of circumstances for somebody to retire in the middle of a game, it's what Gardner Minshew has dealt with the Raiders and a coach who has no trust in him and likes to bench him in game very often.
I don't know what's going on in Las Vegas, and I don't know if Antonio Pierce is the right guy for the job right now. I think he's figuring it out as he goes along. Huh?
Yeah. I think he's going to lose his job.
Yeah, probably. What are the chances they bring back Gruden?
0 to -0. That's not even a number.
I've got biggest flirt. Any wide receiver that the Steelers were targeting. Just any of them. Mostly Brandon Ayuk, because he was the one that was like, yeah, I'd go play in Pittsburgh. And we're like, oh, we're going to get Brandon Ayuk. He's coming to Pittsburgh. Yeah, he's going to be a Steeler. And they just dragged it out and dragged it out and dragged it out. And then it was all for nothing. It was all a power play. So.
It doesn't take two to flirt. Couldn't you also say Omar Khan's responsible in that flirting?
It's just one person, though. It's the biggest flirt.
Oh, okay.
Right. The biggest flirt. I'm going to Brandon Ayuk.
What do you got next?
Let's see. Most likely to be the first team to lose and blame it on chemtrails. Say it with me, folks.
The New York Jets.
I feel like it was
Blame it
pretty
on
spot on.
chemtrail. You know, based on how the election turned out, we do have to cross off the whole demand a recount thing from our Aaron Rodgers segment a couple weeks ago. I will say that is officially off the board now. Blame it on chemtrails. Happiest to pack his bags. Zadarius Smith, who openly spoke about the potential of getting traded to the Lions weeks ago and said, yeah, I wouldn't mind it. They're a contending team. That'd be cool. And then weeks later, he got traded to the Lions. So I think his bags might have already been packed, and he's officially in Detroit looking to replace Aiden Hutchinson, who was lost for the year with a leg injury.
And then finally, Nick, I have everyone's favorite, most likely to succeed. It's the Kansas City Football Chiefs.
Yes, I would agree.
They are a team that doesn't look great at times, and you think you have them, and you don't. And
the Chiefs
you don't.
are inevitable.
Yes, they are Thanos. They snap their fingers and poof, heads. Which, by the way, who calls tails in a huddle? Baker, huh? Who calls tails?
Hey, tails never fails.
Yeah, well, it
Tails
failed
never
on
fails.
Monday night. The Chiefs, they're clearly good and comfortable in close games too.
Yeah.
Like they don't mind, sticking with you. Where like is the only answer to build up a lead early? You can't with that defense. It's just I don't know how to beat them because they just happen.
Sean, of their 8 wins, only 2 have come by more than 1 possession. So yeah, you're right. The other 6 are all 1 possession wins, which makes me think about that Vikings team back a couple of years ago where they were like 11 of their wins were by 1 possession. Whoa, but they were a fraudulent team. This is not a fraudulent team.
You could also say like the 2021 Steelers that started 11-0. Like, hey guys, like
they were also a fraudulent team. This Chiefs team is not. Bonus superlative. Most likely and most deserving of a nap. Caleb Williams. My God, does the guy scramble for his life on many occasions every week. I've never seen somebody so good at making the unlikely all of a sudden happen when it comes to evading rushers and then still not finding anybody downfield. The guy's got to be tired. The rookie wall usually hits you about week 10 or week 12. It's week 10, folks. It's coming fast. Time to take a nap, Caleb.
I really would have thought that most likely to need a nap would be why is his name escaping me right now? Anthony Richardson.
No, I thought you were going to go old and be like Joe Flacco.
No, I was going to say Anthony Richardson because he took himself out of the game on 3rd and goal because he was quote unquote tired.
You're right. That's true. That's good. That's a recent callback. That's good. Tap on the helmet. Take me out. And then he loses his job.
I think that's it for the NFL this week because week 10 starts in about 24 hours. So by the time this podcast drops, you'll already be watching Thursday Night Football.
Maybe not. Maybe I'll get it up before then.
Oh, maybe. That's what we call in the business a tease, folks. Nick, let's shift gears. At record pace this time. We're heading south. Unless, of course, you're listening to this in the Southern Hemisphere, in which case we're heading to Brazil, Sao Paulo, Interlagos, the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. What in the hell was that race? I can't even give you what I normally do when we talk about these races is I give you a quick recap. I give you 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place, and then we just talk about the battle between McLaren and Max Verstappen. I can't even do this race justice by doing the old normal song and dance, the old normal shtick here, because that race was, I'm not going to call it the best race of the season, but it was the most chaotic. And usually over the course of an F1 season, if we're lucky, we'll get a good rain race. We'll get a race with, an unpredictable winner. We'll get some good battles on track. We'll get some drama like that. That all gets sprinkled throughout a season, and that's why we love this sport so much. Brazil was like, hold my, what is it called? Cachaça? Isn't that their? I
don't know.
Okay. Hold my drink. I'm going to give you all in one race. There was rain. There were teammate battles. There were penalties. There was a black flag waved. And to top it all off, you had Max Verstappen coming from P17 to win the race by more than 20 seconds.
Yep. I walked up to my buddy at the gym, who's a big F1 guy. We talk F1 all the time. And I said, don't tell me I haven't seen the race yet. And he goes, oh, best race of the year. And I went, really? He goes, there was action on every lap. And I said, more action than Montreal because there was action on every lap of that race because of the rain. He goes, even more. Max with one of his best drives of his career. You got to watch it. So I watched, instead of the race in 30, I watched the whole thing, and he wasn't lying. It was pretty awesome.
I will give the edge to Montreal still, just because of how much on-track battling there was. Because remember, there was no DRS at all this entire race. So at times, there wasn't a lot of passing. A lot of people were stuck behind one another. But you do have to give it to Max. I mean, he had a superb first lap in which he passed, I think, 7 cars.
Yeah, he went from P17 to P10 after one lap.
It was insane. And then you also have to give him, like, hey, right place, right time. He was in the right place for the virtual safety car. And I don't want to give him, I don't want to take away too much from him and say it was all luck, like Lando Norris was saying after the race. It was also strategy, which who sucked at strategy again this week, Nick?
McLaren.
Surprise, freaking surprise. Why do I support this team? I don't know. They don't know how to run a race. I could have told you, don't bring your cars in now. The virtual safety car is ending. To be fair, Mercedes also brought George Russell, who was leading the race at the time, in. They bring them both in. Why? You knew the virtual safety car was ending, and you pretty much gave up the lead of the race. You knew there was going to be another virtual safety car, a red flag, a yellow flag, a safety car at some point. It was going to happen. It was bound to happen. I don't know why they did that, and they pretty much bottled the race from there on out. Lando finished P6, Oscar P8, which, by the way, what's been going on with Oscar lately?
Honestly, I feel like he's one of those guys who doesn't have a ton of experience in the rain. He just was kind of all over the track a little bit in this race. But what's been going on with him lately? I mean, he's driver 2 right now, and they were trying to elevate Lando into a legitimate competition with Max. And yeah, he just hasn't driven the best in the last few weeks, but that doesn't mean that he had a really hot streak before then. So I'm really not concerned about him.
Yeah, I think back-to-back 8th place finishes, which that car is too good to be finishing in 8th place.
John, did you leave out the most important detail outside of Max, though?
No, I'm getting to that right now. Nick,
Okay.
Max finished on the top step. Who finished on steps 2 and 3?
If you spun the wheel of teams and chose a team, and if you did it after Bahrain, this would be the last team you would pick Williams. You would pick Sauber over this. But no, against all odds. And maybe it was foreboding. The team that has Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce investing in them. Alpine with a double podium finish. P2 and P3 for Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Ocon drove masterfully. He was in the lead for a while. Gasly did a great job of shoring up the top 3, falling in behind and still holding off George Russell. Here's the thing. When it's rainy, anything can happen. Anybody can end up there. But for Alpine to do it, to keep it on the track and avoid the chaos and avoid the strategic mistakes with the car that they've had all year, I mean, it was the peak of their season, maybe the peak of the last few seasons for them.
That was insane to see, because of all the teams that could have fallen right behind Max, I did not, like you said, have Alpine on my wheel of mystery, because they have been more punchy as of late. They've been more competitive. They have developed the car a little bit, but it's to the point where they're not even going to be running their own engines next year. Like, they're not going to run the Renault engine anymore. Renault is not going to be an engine supplier because the only car they were supplying was their own, and there's no money to be made in that. So the fact that this team, with these 2 drivers who have butted heads several times this season, one of whom, Esteban Ocon, is not going to be with the team next year as he moves over to Haas, they pull this out. And the cool part is they actually scored more points than any other team in Brazil, 35 points. But that takes them from the bottom of the grid up to the middle, and with it, tens of millions of dollars in prize money. I don't know what the exact climb was, but I think they were like 8th or 9th.
Yeah, I think it was 50 million is what they're going to make if they finish where they are now.
That is insane, with only 3 races left to go. Good for them, because so much is made about how they don't like each other. They don't get along. And we've seen that on track, to be fair.
Yeah,
like we have seen that. But afterwards, they were just as quick to do like joint press conferences, and they were embracing each other. They grew up in the same area of France. So it is really cool to see 2 kids from that area, Normandy, just kind of reach this and enjoy that moment together for all of France, really.
Yeah, it's fun to see a team that has struggled so much. And when times are hard, you butt heads, but it's fun to see them come together on a chaotic weekend that included rescheduled qualifying to the morning of the race and all this other stuff. Experience a triumph together in one of their last races together. It's one of those experiences that you don't often see with a lower level team like that. Usually they're just bringing up the back of the pack. And in one fell swoop, they jumped past Haas, who's had a nice month or so. And the money could make all the difference for them because they've been struggling back there for a while. They used to be a midfield team, and they're not anymore. Maybe this is the start of them getting back into the midfield. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, 2 double points finishes for Haas headed into Brazil. Unfortunately, Nico Hulkenberg gets shown a black flag because he was one of many drivers that found themselves off track. And unfortunately, he stopped. He stopped, tried to move his car, didn't, and then not stewards. Were they stewards or
I think trackside stewards
track
are still
officials
stewards.
just came
Yeah.
over and touched the car, and that's considered receiving
They didn't
aid
just
or-
touch it; they pushed him
it.
out.
It was like, I don't know if you've ever, I know you don't watch IndyCar like I do, but like that's what they do to Indy cars. They push it out of the pits to get it going, and then it goes. So it
I
was
think
like an IndyCar starts being-
Hulkenberg said afterward that they all started partying, and I think that meant like they were rallying together to push the car out. But when you read it like from the American English, and you're like, they started partying. What?
Like, what?
And they pushed him out, which was nice. Great example of teamwork. Unfortunately, it resulted in a disqualification.
Right.
How about Sean? Can we talk about the start real quick? Just because, I mean,
I wish we wouldn't.
the formation lap. Lance Stroll puts it out
yes,
outside of the
this
track
start,
and
please.
beaches his car on the formation lap. That's how wet it was.
Okay. I don't want to blame him too much because he goes off track, and this is I would love to blame Lance Stroll for many of life's and Formula One's problems, but I'm not going to do that right now because it was wet. Formation lap, but of course it had to be Lance Stroll. There's no one else left in this sport. Like we can't have a Go-Tiffy anymore. There's no. I mean, hey, even George Russell still bottles some things from time to time, but normally, when we saw something like that, it was Nicholas Latifi, or it was Logan Sargent, or it was Nick DeVries, or Lance Stroll. So there's no one left but Lance Stroll to do those dumb things anymore. What makes it even dumber, Nick, is he starts to reverse his car. Doesn't really turn it much. And instead of taking the access road back out onto the track to rejoin the formation lap, he pops a Yui, not realizing that the gravel pit was right there.
Right into
and
the
just
gravel.
drives himself into the gravel, beaching the car. Day over. If you're a mechanic that worked in that car, getting it ready for a wet race, and he just beaches it on the formation lap, like, oh, what are you saying under your breath about that, man?
Oh, there's daddy's boy. Can't even figure out how to get the car off the side of the road when it's still running.
Daddy's
right
money.
So I guess the fans around that area of the track were calling him Latifi in that moment.
They were.
Brazilian fans ruthless. And the
They
video
are.
of it's great because like you see him like pull a Yui and then just drive right into the gravel.
And they started cheering again. I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh,
Oh,
it's great.
Lance Stroll.
So
Please.
that caused what they call an aborted start. And there was some confusion on the track because as the drivers came back to their grid places, their grid boxes before the start of the race, as one does before the start of every race, they didn't understand there was an aborted start. They didn't know why. Then as they find out, some drivers go out for another formation lap, which breaks the rules. Who was among those drivers, Sean?
Lando.
Who didn't leave?
Max.
At this
He's-
point, Lando is kind of inventing new ways to screw it up.
He really
Not to mention
is,
the fact he lost the lead into turn one again.
which really is amazing to me because like the one thing I can't like you could say many good things about Lando heading into this season. The knock on him was just hasn't had the car. You liked his racing style because you liked how quick he was with his race pace, how he did not make mistakes during the race, and how quick he was over one lap. Those were the three things you could bank on. He is quick in qualifying, he has good race pace, and he does not often make mistakes. He still is great over one lap. His race pace is good, but man, is he making mistake after mistake after mistake. I'm starting to believe maybe Helmut Marko was right. Maybe there's a psychological gene that Lando doesn't have.
Got the yips.
But
He's got the yips, man.
But he better figure it out over this offseason, okay? I like the title race was already like it could have been made a title race, but it was an uphill climb by the time McLaren got that car together. Man, you better, I don't know if you need to go see like a sports psychologist or meditate or something, but get it together before Bahrain next year, man, because you need
Yeah.
some help here.
I mean, with Max's finish in P1, which by the way breaks a streak of winless starts going back to June. Congrats, Max, on top of the podium again. That essentially wraps up the
Yeah,
drivers'
I
championship
think so too.
in his favor.
You
It
want to
would
know
take
how
a
many times,
miracle.
Nick, a driver in Formula One history, and we are talking all the way back to 1950, how many times a driver has come from P17 or worse to win the Grand Prix?
Less than 5 times.
5.
Ah,
Exactly 5 times now that Max Verstappen does it. I can't take anything away from him. Did he get a little bit of luck? Sure, but it's a wet weather race. Like, that is what a rainy race is all about. You know, it's the great equalizer. And when everything was on an equal plane, Max Verstappen still won by 20 seconds and showed you, guys, I'm still top dog.
what was crazy too is some of the overtakes he had, and they were talking about this in the broadcast, where like you could see his feel for the car, because like
Yeah.
you have to have a lot of confidence and trust in the car in the wet to be able to brake late and be able to pull off some of the overtakes that he did. I mean, he was overtaking from a significant distance behind just because he was so in tune with his car. And amid those conditions, oftentimes it's the most experienced drivers that prevail, or a car that's just set up well or made well for, you know, wet conditions, more downforce, whatever it is. Like Haas had a mutter last year that proved well in the rain. Max, it was a little bit of everything. Not only did that car look good in the previous 2 races, but this one, it was him. It was his driving. It was his driving, his ability to just knife through the field, get up into the top 10 very quickly, and just work his way through. He never went for anything crazy. He never did some of the stuff that he's done the last few races that have, you know, put him in the timeout corner. And instead instead he comes away with a resounding victory that I think was the perfect finisher to the season for him.
One last note from this race, because we already dogged on Aston Martin once with Lance Stroll, deservedly so. But we do have to give a stick tap, if you're a hockey fan, to Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
Because that car was not set up well for this race. What was exactly the problem? Do you know?
So the issue was the bumping, and
Yeah.
it's not porpoising in the sense that we came to know it as, with ground effect being part of the regulations again, that all the cars were dealing with a year ago. It was the resurfaced track. I guess, like, and they talked about this in the broadcast too. I guess the people who resurfaced it like didn't iron out the bumps, and they're actually worse than they were before they resurfaced it. And they were talking about like, yeah, they need to talk to the people that did this resurfacing and get this figured out, because this is not okay for especially a track with this much undulation. So Fernando is late in the race, and you just get a random radio message from him, and he's like in the back of the pack, and he just goes, "I will finish this race for the mechanics. They have done a great job all weekend, but this bumping is not normal, man. My back is killing me."
And you know, for a guy, I mean, well, first of all, he's like 42 years old, so like his back probably isn't in the best of shape as it was. And but for someone that's been racing that long, like, just to say, guys, I'm going to finish this for them. I know the reason he said it was he wanted it on record and he wanted it out there, but good for him, because the mechanics worked so hard on both cars, only for one driver to beach it on the formation lap, and another driver that clearly just wasn't going to come home even close to scoring points. But he was like, guys, like, we deserve something here. So good on Fernando Alonso for doing that. Stick taps to you, sir. But Aston Martin, I mean, they're in some dire straits here. Maybe they can get some help from Daddy Warbucks.
Well, I mean, they could fix their problem if they got rid of Daddy's son, but that's not going to happen. So this is who they are.
Well, they also are going to have Adrian Newey coming in next year. But I just pray to whatever God anyone listening to us believes in, that Adrian Newey doesn't give them a title-winning car and they put Lance Stroll in the forefront of it and make him driver one.
Actually, that would be fun, because then we could get a real test of Lance's driving abilities and find out that he's not a good driver. It would be like it's like watching a car crash. Like, everybody wants to see it, even if there's carnage. Like, that's kind of what I want to see.
I just watched a video on that earlier today, Nick. Actually, I'll send it to you, because we do already have a sample size of that, and you'll find out why. Anything else from the race? Because we're heading to Las Vegas, but not for another 2 weeks, and that is sure to be a fun one.
Now we get a little bit of a break. Title race is essentially wrapped up, at least in the driver's side. The constructors is still very interesting.
Yep, pretty close.
As it stands right now, McLaren with a 36-point lead over Ferrari, 593 to 557. Red Bull right behind them at 544, probably not going to catch up. So Ferrari could make it very interesting in these last 3 races. Could come down to the final one at Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi.
Yas Marina.
Yas Queen. Yas.
All right, this has been episode 54.
No, wait, that was Sean. Oh, wait, we're not doing predictions because we have more shows. Sorry, my
Yeah,
fault.
we got like 2 more weeks until
We'll cut
the
that
race.
out in post. We'll cut that out in post.
Cut out my beginning and post too, and just like super.
Not gonna do that. Definitely not gonna do that.
Has my voice been AI generated by ChatGPT yet?
Now I'm not cutting
could
this out
be.
of post.
Probably
This is
could
too
be.
good.
For Nick Shook and the absent Katie Caldwell, I'm Sean Barie. Thanks so much for listening to us here on episode 54 of the Gridiron Podcast. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends, like, subscribe, listen, send us an email even at the Gridiron Podcast 3. That is the Gridiron Podcast 3. Damn those other 2 at gmail.com. We love to hear from you guys. Thanks so much. Yeah. Say goodnight, Nick.
Good night, Nick.
And as always, live life in the fast lane.
And if you know this episode came in under 40 minutes, you know we had places to be. Good night, Canada.
Good night, Ray Gun.
Good night, Katie.